interview that us here at Faulty Radiator are doing. Interviewing my man Dayton here. We've we've worked together like a little bit in the past, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dayton did a remix of my track Holocaust, and that was the third track on the Holocaust single, alongside another remix my friend Morgan did, and that the song Holocaust, which is what it was a single for.
Yeah.
So yeah. Dane, why don't you tell us a little about yourself? Just a little bit, a brief.
Yeah. I'm, as we've said before, I'm Dayton. I do guitars, vocals, and the programming for a band called Atria. We're out of Tennessee. I also have a solo extreme metal project called Infective Vasectomy, a solo project, and a few other things that are in the works right now.
You do so much shit. I made a TikTok. I haven't posted it yet, but it's duetting one of your videos, and just like, because I know you just like, you're very like prolific at like, I'm not sure if I'm using that word right, but you're always on TikTok. You're always posting. I think like me, we post every day.
Mhm.
We're similar. We both kind of have the same system. But you like every once in a while you reveal a little thing about yourself. So like in one video you'll be like, yeah, balancing research papers and all this shit is hard. And then oh, I'm going off to college or whatever. It's just like, how do you, and then your one of your videos, it was a New Year's video, and you said that you worked on like 50 fucking songs.
Oh yeah.
I how like that's so many, and research papers take up a while.
Oh
especially plural, multiple research papers. Like, how do you think you got it done? What do you do to manage your time, Dayton?
To be honest, I'm in a very privileged position. I'm well enough off with my family, and again, I live with my family. I'm not an adult yet, so I don't have to work a job, and that helps me manage my time a bit better, not having to worry about that.
Okay, gotcha.
It's a very privileged position I'm in, and I know a lot of other people don't have that position, so I'm very lucky.
Right. Let's get into this stuff. So
Right.
More music related this time. How long have you been interested in doing music and creating? It can't just be like how long you've been creative. A lot of people are just creative out of the womb, but yeah, just like what initially got you started in like, oh, I want to make my own song, or like, whatever.
I think I got started with interest at least around 8th grade, because that's around when I started playing guitar. Because before that I was just into like sports and stuff. I was mainly a baseball player. But around 8th grade is when I started getting out of baseball, and I wanted to put my energy somewhere else, so I decided to go to music. And I think around junior year of high school is when Atria started, and that's whenever I started actually putting a lot more work into stuff. There were, I think, 2 songs before that, but junior year of high school is really when like most of my creative energy started for music.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so you mentioned just like the start of it. So started your junior year of high school. How did you and Journey meet?
Oh, that was an interesting one. I think that was around junior year.
Okay.
And it's probably the one time this app has been useful. It's an app called Yubo. It's supposed to be for like people making friends and stuff. And I've heard people sometimes call it like child-friendly Tinder, but like I met Journey on there because I just got bored and downloaded the app, and she was like the one person out of Tennessee on that app.
Oh, okay. So what are the fucking chances?
Oh yeah, it was complete odds.
A bass player who like shares similar taste to you, who's like the only, that's so weird.
Oh yeah, it was like probably like 1 in 1 trillion chances.
Yeah, right. Point. So you guys didn't know each other before then? You guys didn't go to school together or anything?
No.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And are you guys like the same age range?
I think she's like a few months younger. I don't remember
Oh,
exactly, but like
wow.
a very similar age range.
Wow. Okay. Cool. I didn't suspect that. Yeah. Um, okay, so going more into Atria and its material. So I'm always a little not too sure about your first non-single release dark demo because I'm not sure how to treat it. So um it could be considered like a first EP, but then also in the actual title of it is demo. So I was just are you guys ever going to like finalize those tracks and release like a fully mixed and mastered version of them? Or are those just, this is what we have right now and this is what we're putting out? And that's just our early material.
Yeah, I floated the thought around of redoing that stuff maybe as like an anniversary thing.
Mm,
Uh, I wanted to do a remix at one point, but actually just remix the songs, not like change any of the arrangements or anything.
right, right.
Uh, like before Eve originally was supposed to be sort of a sasscore song in the style of something like See You Space Cowboy, but and that might get remixed like that. But my main issue is it's kind of hard to capture those original performances if you want to redo them. A
Yeah.
lot of recording music is about being in a certain place and capturing a certain like point in a time span for a musician. So when you
Mm,
re-record a lot of that stuff, sometimes just the energy gets lost. And that's my biggest thing. Because there's something like I forget which album it is, but In Flames, if I'm not mistaken, redid one of their albums. And when they redid it, it just to me wasn't as good because they weren't in that same time place. Like if Slipknot redid their first album, yeah, that album's rough around the edges, but it wouldn't be the same.
that would be terrible. Like a fucking We Are Not Your Kind era Slipknot redoing. Oh, Jesus. Uh, you're right. It really wouldn't capture the same, but yeah. Anyway, sorry. Just thinking about Slipknot redoing their old albums now. Not that they're bad or anything, but they're just like
Oh,
they'd have very different ideas, and
oh
it
yeah.
just it wouldn't really even kind of capture like what they were doing back then, honestly. But okay, so you're thinking you might just like leave that out there, or
We
you?
might do like a few remixes or like remaster everything, but I don't think we'd redo the original performances.
Okay, cool, yeah. So would you have you considered it? Sorry, have you considered like just removing demo out of the name and just calling it dark? Because is it supposed to be called quote dark or dark demo?
Originally it was supposed to just be a demo of like a almost like a sampler of what the band has in store and like
Right.
what the band can do.
Mhm.
Uh, so I might just keep it as dark demo. Maybe like a remaster or re-release just gets called dark or something.
Yeah.
But I think that one's going to stay dark demo. It really
Okay.
depends on how it goes forward.
Right. Gotcha. Um, and then what trying to see how to phrase the question. Why didn't you initially put Atria stuff on like the big streaming services and just saved it for Bandcamp?
Oh,
Was there any particular reason?
yeah. I couldn't find a distributor that was free and allowed me to be under 18. That was a big thing. Because I didn't know if I wanted to dedicate any resources to it. Because as I said earlier, I don't have a job, and that does come with not having a lot of money to spend on Atria stuff.
Right.
So it
Yeah.
was kind of just working within our bounds. And
Okay.
that's part of why Infective Vasectomy exists is because I wanted to test out a few distributors.
Yeah.
And obviously, right now, with the album being delayed, this one isn't going as planned.
Yeah. I got so sick and tired of waiting for it. Not your fault. Not your fault at all. Obviously, it's for those of you watching the video. Uh, their distributor, just like what do they do? They just couldn't process
Yeah,
stuff.
I think it was their DSP processing just like backed up for a few weeks, and they didn't tell anyone on the distributor, so they couldn't do any updates for or processing for like updates or
Yeah.
anything. And we had to update one of our songs on the album. So that got lumped in there because they couldn't improve the entire album because of one song had to get updated.
Yeah. So this motherfucker made a whole album, released it on Bandcamp, and was intending for it to be released. And then I just felt so much, because I've sort of had similar things happen. Like maybe it was like a day off of what I was expecting, like with DistroKid, a release. But like to make a whole album and then just have it not appear where you've like put it out there, like this is coming out this time, and then it's just fucking not there. That must be so infuriating.
Oh yeah. We're
Dude.
approaching 2 months of a delay so far.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Like I would be very, very pissed if I put in that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I would be really pissed if I put in a whole album's worth of work and then sorry, we're just not gonna. No, we're too backed up right now. I fucking hate that, man. So you have like solo projects and stuff. You do music on your own, but what prompted you to start a band? What prompted you to collaborate with another musician to form something?
Well, ever since like that 8th grade I mentioned, I always kind of wanted to do a band. It was just kind of the thing of having friends making music and all that. Uh, Doing solo stuff, you really get trapped in your own mind, I feel, of like, there's no one else checking your work. Even just having one other person in the room to check your work is really useful just from a practical sense.
Very,
But
yeah.
just like the chemistry of a band is much different than a solo project. And that's something that solo projects can't replace. And so I want to have that experience.
How did you and Journey like start making music? What was your like what was the idea that prompted like, oh, what if you play bass, right? What if we do this? You know what?
I think going back to the whole Yubo thing, she had bassist in the bio, and I think whenever I initially actually texted her, which I think I ended up texting her on Instagram instead of Yubo, uh, I talked about how, hey, we're both from Tennessee and we both play instruments. And I think I floated around the idea that I was already looking for a band at that point. And then a few weeks in, I was like, hey, do you just want to form a band? I can just go get a drum machine.
Yeah, okay. Cool. So just seeing your TikToks and your other content and the background of your setup here, you have a quite a bit of you have a big setup. You have quite a bit of gear.
Yeah,
So,
some of
yeah.
these behind me are my sisters, but like we share.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how did you get that whole setup? Like, because you said you started like a couple years ago. So
Yeah, 8th grade. So
yeah, right. So how did that all come about?
Facebook Marketplace. You buy used gear. It is amazing.
Really?
I think one or two of these have been bought new. The rest are used.
Wow. Okay. Crazy. So so that's your guitars. What about like your like drum machines or your sorry,
Like pedals and stuff.
Yeah, pedals. Yeah. Sorry.
I think all of those were also bought used. I think I can count on two hands how many stuff I bought new. Used gear is amazing if you can find it in good condition.
Okay, yeah. Well, especially like I imagine like Facebook Marketplace is like Facebook is just Facebook Marketplace from what I have seen is just a lot of moms who want to get rid of their like college kids' old shit. So like so I'm imagining they'll sell that for like not for like cheap too, right?
Yeah. There's
That's
a
crazy.
few groups as well. They're regional groups. They're typically called like awesome cheap guitars, where like you can only post up to $500 in there. So everything in that subgroup or in that group will be just $500 or less. So those are really good groups to look around.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'll look into that now. Thank you for telling me.
No problem.
Because I've been, oh my God. I get tips at my work. So I have like a whole system of like, okay, I need this amount of money, then I'm going to get this, like the micro brute back there was such like a okay,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Speaking of
At this state, I'll have this. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, speaking of microbrutes, I think Pro Audio Star is another good one because that's where I got mine. They sell really cheap, like open box stuff. They're
Oh, okay.
technically used, but not really.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, just remembering the names. Okay. I'll probably ask you later.
No problem.
Cool. So you mentioned so you're not the only musician in your family then.
No, my sister was in a short-lived band, and she also does volunteer work for a group here in Chattanooga called Chattanooga Girls Rock. They're a week-long summer camp that teaches girls how to like play instruments, and at the end of the week, they do a showcase at one of our local venues.
Oh,
It's a really cool thing, and eventually, I'm probably going to volunteer there. I'll be like in the back or something, do like gear crew, but I think they just do amazing work, and she helps out with them a lot.
cool. I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, they have Chattanooga Girls Rock as an organization has stuff on I think at least every state, but usually they have them by city because I know there's like one in Atlanta, one in Knoxville, one in Nashville, and stuff like
Okay.
that.
Interesting. All right. I'll also have to research that. Look into it. Have you had any like formal guitar training, or are you all self-taught?
Uh, I think the closest I had to musical training was whenever I was in elementary school. Occasionally, I would get after school drum lessons, which those have stuck the least. I don't even do real drums anymore.
Yes.
And in elementary school, I think we had a after school like ukulele and recorder program. And that did help a little bit with ukulele with learning how to fret early on. But other than that, pretty much everything's been self-taught or self-taught. YouTube helps a lot.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Interesting. So shifting gears to infected vasectomy now. My main question and inquiry is when you say, oh, my new project infected vasectomy has put out a new release to your family or friends, what is their reaction?
Uh, well, some of my friends, they just don't care or they're like not phased by it anymore. They've heard worse band names at this point.
Yeah.
And family, a lot of my family actually doesn't know about it. It's one of those projects I like to just keep on the download, not for like any particular reason. It's just, I don't know. It's not something I think is for everyone. So if someone asks, I'll tell them, but I'm
Right.
not going to tell everyone because I know most people aren't going to like it.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. It's just, yeah, like family gatherings and stuff. I know it's like for musicians and stuff, like having an aunt be like, oh, so how's the band going?
Yeah.
What you been up to? And then just going, I'm in a project called Infected Vasectomy.
Yeah. I'm in a little project called Grandma Slayer.
Grandma Slayer. I'm gonna kill you later. um so once when I heard Forsaken by Most, Loved by None, it wasn't like random to me. Meaning I feel like a lot of people, especially in like the kind of like DIY, like noisy, grimy, extreme stuff, whatever you want to call that, crust punk, fucking grindcore, anything like that. When people put together like little EPs or whatever, they usually come into it, from what I found, with like an idea of just making like a compilation. These are the songs that I have. These is what this is what I've written so far. Let's just put 5 of them together, put this. But I didn't really feel that for Forsaken. It kind of seemed like there was a general theme. So I was wondering if like you were thinking about there being a general theme to that EP particularly.
Because of the way it was made, even if I wasn't thinking of one consciously, it would have come up anyways, because that whole EP, I think, was made in about the span of a week or two. And so no matter what, there was going to be a general theme coming about because there's almost no evolution as a musician in those 2 weeks. So it's pretty much just going to be where I'm at that point. There's no like year-long evolution of me as a musician during that time period.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Okay. What was there? Was there any type of like running concepts, I guess? Like, were you trying to make a concept EP or something
Uh,
like that?
no, not really. It's more of if just trying to be true to myself and like some of my ideas I had, because Atria is a lot more artistic in a sense, or at least that's how I think of it. Not that extreme metal isn't artistic. I think extreme metal artists are very expressive and artistic, but it, in fact, a vasectomy is a lot more stripped back, and so I can be a lot more direct with some of my ideas. And so
Okay,
that's pretty much just what I was going for, was wanting to be direct.
gotcha. All right. And then what about Grind Slave? Was there any like running themes there, or like how did that come about?
Uh, there are a few like segmented themes throughout. Like there are a few songs that are essentially just joke songs,
Yeah.
and like a love letter to politicians and the weight of my consciousness is a burden on my soul. Uh, those are essentially joke songs, and that's because this album was originally actually supposed to be made for a class, because I was taking a popular American music class, and originally during the class there was going to be a project on presenting a genre that wasn't in the book. And so before everything, I thought, I'm going to do grindcore. I'm going to make up this band. I'm going to make music for this band and present it totally seriously. I'm not going to tell them it's my band, and it's going to fit in perfectly. Because
Okay.
I had an idea of doing a grindcore album back in like 8th grade, because it was a genre that I knew was simple and DIY. So I was like, I could do this on my own. And
Okay.
that kind of carried over to Grind Slave. And there are, towards the last part of the album, I feel like it starts getting more artistic with things like Clipped Wings and Darling. Those songs get a lot more post-hardcore, I guess, and like really artistic, and almost like kind of converge on the Jane Doe album in a sense. But I think that's another thing that runs through, is just as it runs on, it gets more complicated, essentially.
Gotcha. We covered Grind Slave, and I'm just so I didn't know that Forsaken was done in like a week.
Yeah.
That was more like
Uh,
that was more like behind the scenes, but
yeah.
you were very open about your new holiday EP being done in like a day, because it was
Yeah.
sort of like a challenge. So just
Oh, yeah.
tell me where you came up with that idea, and like how you recorded 5 songs, is it?
Yeah. 5 songs.
Recorded 5 songs, mixed and mastered them in one day. On actually, I don't know what day it was, but it seemed like you were doing it on Christmas Eve or
Yeah.
Christmas.
December 24th.
Oh,
Uh, I had the idea to make a holiday EP initially, because initially I wasn't going to do anything.
mhm.
But I saw Ratman put out a holiday EP. And so I
Ratman.
was, yeah, shout out to Ratman.
Why did the song Future change so much?
Oh,
it it
yeah.
was the single sounds so much different than the one on Raw.
Uh, Originally, the single version was going to be the one that goes on Raw, but I was just kind of unhappy with it. I don't, in retrospect, I don't think the song's as bad as I was making it out to be, but I wanted to do something more with it. I was getting a lot more into bands like Glassjaw and Deftones. I was already into them, but I was really getting back into them. And I wanted to do something a bit more subdued with it, a bit more artistic. But that one also changed a lot before it even got released to its final version behind the scenes. We were initially going to release a version with a lot more vocals on it, but it would have been more of a Glassjaw style of vocals. Something kind of like their song Must Have Run All Day off their second album. But I wasn't happy with how that sounded, so I changed over the vocal style, and that's why we have what we have now.
Okay, gotcha. Why do you hate Electro Hell so much?
That one, whenever I was initially making it, I thought it was like a really cool song, and listening back
is.
to it, yeah, listening back to it, I don't hate it as much. But while I was making it, I think I heard a lot more in it than there actually is whenever I listen back now.
Mhm.
I don't hate the structure of the song, but I think there are some areas where I definitely missed out on it, and I could have done something better. And I think that's why I hate it a lot. And also, like, I had like my dad gives me a lot of just crap for that one because he's very like traditional about music when it comes to like he really enjoys like your 90s crunk and like early 2000s rap and
Oh,
stuff like that. So he's not really into the more noisy stuff. And so I think that's kind of bled over into my own opinion on the song.
understood. Yeah. Um, what initially prompted the idea of doing an EP and then a remix EP of that? So yeah, you have the Nightcore and the slowed and reverbed.
Yeah. Initially, it was just I wanted to have something out because I know modern algorithms and stuff with like social media, they really want you to have something out like all the time. And as a musician, that is really hard to do. I've been able to do it a bit better with the infective vasectomy stuff, but that's just because it is very down and dirty and very quick. But with Atria, it takes a lot of time, especially because there's another person on board. And so I wanted to be able to have something to where I could still promote it because I feel this is just a personal thing where I kind of get sick of bands promoting the same single over again, like on their TikToks or whatever. I don't think it's bad. I don't hate any of them for it. I just get sick of seeing those videos. And even if the song is one of the best songs of the year, I'll still get sick of it. So having a remix of it at least gives me a little bit more time until I can start promoting the next project. And it's fun to get like streaming goals and stuff. Like the Nightcore remix was so when we hit 100 streams on that album, we would release the Nightcore remix, and so we did. Slowed and Reverb, it was 200 streams, and so it's sort of to incentivize streaming, but it's also just to give us a bit more leeway. It helps us connect with our fans a bit more. It's all around just a win-win, we feel.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. So I, you seem to like do most of the stuff in Atria. Like what? Why is there any particular reason why Journey doesn't like do like more? I know she wrote the lyrics for Honey, but
Yeah.
like, and she is a fantastic bassist, by the way. Your low end and specifically the bass is like maybe like one of my favorite things about Atria is always her bass part. She's fucking great at what she does, but why doesn't she ever like do more? Is there any particular reason why that hasn't really come about?
Part of the reason is just we live a decent amount apart. I think she's about an hour away, and in for Tennessee, an hour away is like a different time zone essentially. Like I think she is physically an hour behind me right now,
Oh
and
wow.
so it gets a little complicated to do that stuff long distance. Other bands can do it, and some bands I have in the works right now were able to make it work. But for something like Atria, it gets really complicated. It's to the point where like we can barely have practices. I think we've had two so far, and that's also just because of like transportation.
Yeah.
Neither of us have a car that works that well, so it's hard to make those long trips.
Mhm.
And so we came to a compromise of like she'll help write the bass parts since that's what she's really good at is bass, and then because she doesn't have any recording equipment, what I'll do is I'll record the bass parts here since I have like the HM2 is used on a lot of our bass parts. We have the basses back there. That white bass is used for almost every Atria song, and so I'll re-record them. If I add any flourishes, I'll like send a video of me playing the bass to her so she can learn those flourishes in case those are like something that becomes a major part of the song or like why it's liked so much.
Right.
Uh, but we have been talking about potentially incorporating Journey more. Like Journey, if I'm not mistaken, used to be able to play like violin. So like we might, if she ever gets a violin, we might introduce that more. I'm pretty sure she can play piano if I'm not mistaken. She's mentioned it a few times. So maybe like having more subdued piano parts in the back. And recently she's been talking about like saxophone, which we don't know if that's a phase or not, but if it isn't, we might be able to incorporate like some saxophone elements or something because she does play a lot of instruments.
Okay, yeah, that was gonna be my other question. Is like, does she only play bass? So that's really cool. I would, as an Atria fan, I would love to see Journey like doing like some violin or piano or whatever, man. I'd love to see her like I love to see more Journey. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Um,
At one point on Honey, when she wrote the lyrics, initially that was actually supposed to be a song where Journey did vocals on it, but with just the a lot of time span we had, we couldn't make it work or anything. But I'm hoping we can eventually get that to work out better. Have Journey do vocals because there's some parts in Atria songs that have been released and haven't been released, where there are two vocal parts going on at the same time, one singing, one screaming, and if we ever try to do that live, we'll have to both do vocals eventually. So I want to be able to reflect that in our actual work, where eventually we get Journey to be able to actually do some of that stuff.
that kind of reminds me of Filth Pig era Ministry,
Yeah.
where it's like it's Paul Barker and Al Jorgensen, and Paul Barker does vocals on Useless, and it's but I don't know. For the cool thing for me about Ministry is it's always like it's kind of what I try to make Faulty Radiator, which it's not. Ministry wasn't Al Jorgensen. Ministry was
Yeah.
Ministry. Ministry wasn't a full band. It was Ministry. It's a music project. It's not his solo work. But he works with whoever the fuck he wants to work, and that's Ministry.
Yeah.
I just on the Filth Pig album, the track "Useless" is sung by Paul Barker, and for whatever reason, you guys like sort of sound some of your stuff sounds like sludgy, like sort of like Filth Pig, so I just made that connection. Anyway, a running theme you guys have a little bit is that you're really good at making stuff loud.
Oh yeah.
How do you get your masters so fucked? Because I've mastered this guy's stuff before, just like when I was putting together my new remix EP, Tasty. I just wanted to volume match everything decently so it would float. Yours was the loudest fucking thing out of all of
Yeah.
all. How do you get it so loud without like sounding awful? How do you do that?
Okay, so when I'm actually in the mixing stage of something, I have a tendency to make stuff really loud because I don't like doing a lot of big fader movements. It just feels weird to me. So on the actual master channel of my mix, before I mix it down and send it off for mastering, or export it for mastering, I don't send it off. I do that. Uh, I'll put a limiter on it at about negative 0.3 dB, just so I'm not clipping the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll get my arrangement sort of where I want it with how the instruments are set up. And then after that, I won't touch any of the mix bus faders. I'll go to the master bus fader. I'll turn off my limiter and then start getting it to where usually I'll have at least negative 3 dB of headroom for the master. So I can keep all my instruments pretty loud, but it's not clipping on export. And then mastering, I'll put in like tape saturation that will make it louder, some compressors with makeup gain that makes it louder, EQ, more compression, multiband compression, just things that will keep it loud. And I typically master around negative 3 dB. I don't know how many LUFs that usually is, but or negative 0.3 dB. I don't know if I said negative 3. But so it's staying fairly loud because in the loudness wars that we had back in the CD days, loudness won.
I'm not aware of this.
Yeah,
Give
back
me a
in
brief explanation.
yeah, back whenever CDs were still popular, we realized we could mix it or masters louder and louder, so people would just on their CDs master their music extremely loud, and people were talking about how that took away dynamics from mixes and stuff, and to a certain point it did, because you were essentially everything in your master would kind of look like a rectangle, but with like dips. But that loudness sort of won out with streaming services. It's a little less so because those loud mixes will be taken down and the quiet mixes will be brought up. But in the end, like on the mastering thing, people still like how when you put it loud, it sounds better because it's just an effect on the human ear. Loud things sound better to us typically. That's why concerts and like big church venues are super popular because everything's just really loud, so you just feel it.
Right. Yeah. How did you get into like production and engineering in general? Did it kind of come with you wanting to learn guitar?
It was sort of a necessity if I wanted to make a band, because I don't know many people in this area that can do mixing and mastering. I'm sure there's plenty, and I'm sure they're great at it, but I personally don't know them, so it was just a necessity to do it. And at the end of the day, I kind of want to go into mixing and mastering, because I also realize that's probably the safer option than being a musician, because musicians can get replaced, but mixing and mastering, there's a human element that everyone kind of loves about it. So like your Phil Spectors and like stuff like that from like way back in the day, they can replace musicians on a whim. Like usually they had similar studio musicians, but like the main character of the mix is that it's a Phil Spector mix. And so I just wanted to start doing that for myself. It's the easiest way to give it more character that makes it stand out.
Gotcha. Yeah. I kind of have a similar notion where it's like, yeah, it's gonna be hard to find other people. Not too hard, but gonna find hard to find people. More musicians on my end. It's hard to find those.
Yeah.
But also like mixing and production is it's like it's all creative to me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna like it's my song. I'm not gonna give it to some other motherfucker and have them put their twist on it. Like if it's like it's different if it's a collaboration, but it's not. Like this is like a song that I'm gonna write and I'm gonna make it sound a certain way. You know, it's about just like wanting to perfect your art, and there really is an art to producing and all that stuff.
I also think that like it's very genre dependent. Something like metal, you're being a lot less experimental, in my opinion. And not to say metal isn't experimental, it's just you're going for that metal sound. Metal's a lot about technical proficiency. So when you're doing a metal mix, it's less important to have like experimental stuff behind the scenes and like, oh, the guitar's moving this way and that way to like give you a queasy feeling. So it's a lot easier to send it off to someone, and being in the studio while you're mixing also makes that person almost like a fourth member or like a fifth member or whatever. And when I'm doing it just at home and sending it off to someone, I feel a lot less comfortable with that, because as opposed to being in the studio with like a mixer master engineer. If it was a environment like that, I'd be cool with it. It's just like that's more expensive. We don't have the money for that. Even just sending it off to someone, that's money. And like we're a DIY band, we don't have that many funds.
Right. Gotcha. That makes sense. So I'm assuming the same thing with vocals, is that you just didn't have anyone else to do it, so you started doing it. But have you had, because it's really hard, at least for me it was hard, like, let me actually say what I'm talking about, to just start singing. You can't really do that like well, like it's really hard. Like you really need to like train your voice, and then there's like whatever, like a build up, and then you can actually like start to form like notes that don't sound awful, you know. So how did that come about for you, vocal training?
Yeah. I don't have any traditional vocal training. I was like in elementary school, I was in like school choirs and stuff, but like that teaches you like the very basics. You barely get any like breath support out of that since you're such a young child, but it does help with forming notes and stuff. And then I kind of carried that with me. And then for like the metal screams and stuff, some of that is just doing it improperly, because I have a philosophy of, at least for on the recording, I'll do whatever it takes to get the right take for it, even if it means like destroying my voice for a day. But actually just learning the basis of it, it was a lot of like YouTube and stuff. And my main motivator originally, because I learned it before I was ever in Atria, was this is a dumb story, I was going to a haunted house that my friend worked at, and I wanted to make a joke of screaming at the actual employees instead of, and I warned them beforehand this wasn't going to be like, I warned them this was going to happen, I just didn't tell them when, because I didn't want to be mean to the employees. So I wanted to learn how to metal scream and not just like do a normal scream. And so like YouTube, I forget her name. I'll probably text her or her name to you later, so you can like put it somewhere because she was really helpful. But also, I think the YouTube channel is Hungry Lights. He's now the vocalist for Tala.
Oh yeah,
He
yeah,
has
yep.
he has a few videos on that stuff, and that stuff was really helpful.
Yeah, I ended up just I had like a little bit of help with like singing and stuff, and I can sing okay now. You know, I can sing all right. But I've always just been such a struggle learning how to like scream. I'm just so bad at it. I've never been able to learn it from like all the YouTube videos that I watch. Like I just so much trouble with it. I don't. I just got to figure it out. I've heard that it's a the struggle in screaming is it's very easy to scream, but it's very hard to figure it out.
Yeah,
And
there's a lot of vocalists that just stumble into it. Like from what I've heard, like Chester Bennington of Linkin Park, he like they just told him, "Can you do a scream?" And like he did it, and they're like, "All right, keep doing that." But for others, it takes a while to do, and it's really easy to do it wrong. It's really easy to screw up your voice.
right.
But the best advice I've seen is from people like Chris Sleepy, where he's just don't be afraid to embarrass yourself while practicing. Don't be afraid to make stupid noises because that's how you learn.
My music is stupid noises, so I don't I don't have any issue with embarrassing myself. Okay, I want to shift topics a little bit to like social and political stuff. You seem you seem like very concerned. You like and your music. You express it through your music. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You seem very concerned about being politically correct in like a lot of the stuff you do. Well, why is that?
It's less about political correctness. I realize I come from a place of privilege. You know, blonde hair, blue eyes, white guy in the South of all places, and it's less about not wanting to offend anyone. It's more I realize I want to carry myself with respect. I want to respect other cultures. I want to respect things that even if I don't understand it. And so I try to make corrections where I can. Like like I talked about on TikTok, like doing your remix for Holocaust. That was initially very a little nerve wracking for me
Right.
because again, it's called Holocaust, even if it has nothing to do with it. It carries that implication with it, whether we want it to or not. And so I wanted to be able to do justice to something like that.
Right.
And so I wanted to have someone in the room who could correct me. And luckily, I know many Jewish people. They're amazing people to be around. And so I consulted them before I did anything. And I try to do a similar thing. I at least try to do my research.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. That was really surprising to me because like when I was making the song Holocaust, it didn't even like occur to me that like I'm a non-Jewish person making a song called Holocaust. You know, it didn't even. I guess because I just wasn't really thinking about that. You know,
Yeah.
particularly. I wasn't. I'm not trying to. I wasn't trying to like
Yeah.
disrespect any culture or anything. But I just. It's just kind of like not what you do in the scene, but like you kind of just like oh, this is a song called Holocaust. This is nasty shit. Like I should listen to this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we both come. I feel like I'm comfortable in saying we both come from fairly privileged positions. We're both white, and we're both men, at least to some extent, or we're at least perceived as male. And so we have those blind spots, and those blind spots can cause problems. If they still cause problems, you see like old actors, something they did 40 years in the past or whatever. Like, there's no justifying it. Like, even if they had no ill intentions, it's still a blind spot for them culturally. And I know at the end of the day I can't eliminate all my blind spots, but I try the best I can to sort of have people not look out for me, but be able to learn and keep an open mind and be aware of where I'm blind about stuff.
Okay, I see. Gotcha. Um, shifting gears again. You mentioned you were going off to college. What do you want to study?
Right now, I think I've applied as a music business major because the college I'm going to is one of the few in my area that has an actual music business major, because I realize classical music studies in a like formal education area are not for me. Maybe doing music theory would be for me, but not like playing in an orchestra or doing quartets or anything like that. That's just not how I jam. But doing something like music business, I can still get something practical out of it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, when you first heard my stuff, when you first heard Faulty Radiator, I'm just curious. What was your well? First of all, how did you hear it? How did you come upon it? And then what was your like first impressions of the stuff?
I think the way I found your music was through TikTok. It came across my For You page,
Oh.
and I think I followed, and a few days later I decided to actually like check it out, because I have a really bad habit of following bands and forgetting to check out their music. I'll keep promoting their music and stuff. Like I'll be like, hey, check this out, but I'll forget to listen to it myself because I just have stuff to do. And so whenever I checked it out, I don't remember what I thought. I remember thinking it was really good and it was refreshing to hear, because
Ah.
I was recently getting into industrial music, and I was mainly into just like Skinny Puppy and Nine Inch Nails and those bands. It was really refreshing to hear something that was like clean in a sense. Like there's not a lot of like audible like jarbled distortion on a lot of your music, and I thought that was really interesting and refreshing to see in like industrial scene. And like it might not be like the most new thing. I'm not too into industrial to know that. I'm more into like, if I'm into industrial, it's going to be like your Vivisect 6 era Skinny Puppy and stuff like that, which is really distorted. But at least to me, that was something new and fresh. And I thought it was also cool that you're fairly young. You're, I think, 18.
Yeah.
And so like even then doing it at that, like that's still a young age to me. And so is seeing someone else around my age do music like that was really fresh and inspiring.
Gotcha. That's like almost exactly how I came about Atria. Was that like I kept it was before I even like really knew it was a band. You just have and that's actually really interesting that you're going into music business, because you already have a really good, even though I don't know why you guys don't have like 10,000 followers already. I have no idea, because you're so good at you're like you made a beanie code, and like you just have such good themes, and you're very good marketing ideas, and it seems to me like you guys should be like blowing up like on that alone, really. I don't know why, but anyway, because of that, you kept appearing on my For You page, and I was like, oh, like people make stuff like this. Because what I thought at the time, what I thought small music was, and independent, like underground artists, I guess.
Mhm.
I thought it was all just shitty like emo indie bands. I thought it was all like that far removed pop punk stuff,
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never been a fan of like emo music particularly.
Mhm.
I can get into like Green Day is like one of my favorite bands of all time. It got me into music. So like, and like various other pop punk bands. I came from the acoustic indie world. I was in a band called Eraser, and we had a short presence, but we wrote some cool stuff. But I just had like a bit of a falling out with all that, and like the people involved there, and like just that type of music. It was just like, do we really have to just do the same thing over and over again, where we just sit in someone's bar, strum the same, 4 chords, and sing about how sad we are? Like, isn't there more to music? Come on, like. And I'd always been into heavier rock stuff and metal, and so I've always wanted to do something different besides such a small, like, just me strumming an acoustic guitar and singing, really quietly and whatever. And then then halfway through high school, I got into Nine Inch Nails, and that started my whole thing into industrial music and synthesizers. Really getting into that because I come from guitar and bass.
Yeah.
That's like what I play. I'm a guitarist, I'd say. I know absolutely nothing about playing piano. I can't play piano, but I can press buttons. So
Yeah, same here.
yeah. But I'm so awful at tangents. I'm sorry. The main point
You're fine.
main point is that I didn't know people made that shit. I didn't know like that was something that, and if they did, I thought it was just like whatever, some basement project that they didn't care to promote because no one was gonna fucking listen to it because they'd rather hear someone talk about mental health or whatever, which is such a tired topic in alternative music. It's just so anyway, and it was interesting to be like the algorithm's pushing a fucking like hardcore like like an industrial hardcore project on me. What?
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to check it out, and then whatever. I assumed because you were on my For You page so much, you were just some big like hot shot, like you had like an up and coming like small artist, which you are, but I thought like you had like a really established like underground fan base, and they were like fucking Atria, you know. So whatever. I just started commenting stupid things because my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to do on the internet is shit post. It's so great.
Oh yeah.
It's the easiest. I'm so bad at making content that I just don't, and I just end up shit posting at the end of the day. Anyway, but then I saw like you guys like interacted with me, and I was like, oh, wait, they saw my comment, crazy or whatever, and then I like I was like, oh, it's only on Bandcamp, interesting. Then actually, you guys having your music only on Bandcamp actually got me into Bandcamp and listening to that stuff more. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
I love Bandcamp.
It's so cool.
The Epic Games acquiring them kind of bummed me out a little bit, but yeah, that happened I think 2021 or something like that. But it's a really good platform. Even if I don't discover a lot of my bands there, I love how money goes directly to the bands if you purchase something from them. So it's just a great platform, and Atria being mainly on Bandcamp, I feel it draws our audience a bit to Bandcamp, and I kind of want that effect.
Yeah.
Because I want people to support their artist or their favorite artists on Bandcamp, because that's where most of the money comes from.
So what got you into specifically like heavier music in general? What got you into listening to this type of stuff?
This is a funny story. My dad, as I mentioned earlier, listened to a lot of like crunk and stuff, so like your 3-6 Mafias. But whenever my sister was born, she would like repeat the lyrics of those songs, and if you know anything about them, a toddler should not be repeating those lyrics.
Yeah.
And so he would turn it on to like local rock stations instead. And that was before I was born. So whenever I was born, we were still in the local rock station period. Mm-hmm. And just hearing something like Rage Against the Machine come on the radio, specifically Killing in the Name, that kind of sparked it. And then after I got out of, it was near the tail end of me playing baseball, where I started actually like getting more into that. And I went deeper and deeper. I think initially I got a bit easier on it. Like I started going to more like your Green Day and your Rise Against, and then I decided to go deeper. I think I started with like your standard new metal bands and stuff like that, so your Slipknots and stuff. And then I saw a Pagefire video. They're the people who make like how to make grindcore and stuff, and I saw that one specifically. And initially I made fun of the genre. I thought it was stupid or whatever. But it's one of those things where like if you start ironically using a word, it becomes a part of your vocabulary. It kind of grew on like that. I started like ironically showing people grindcore and stuff, and I started to grow an appreciation for the genre, and then I started doing it myself.
Yeah. Did you have that? Because I did. Did you have that middle school phase where you were like, none of the kids like rock music anymore? Like this, look at this edgy band that I found out.
Surprisingly, I didn't. I always thought those dudes were like it just so annoying. Like,
You would have fucking hated me.
yeah, I was like, I hated the dudes who for a little bit I was a name three songs dude, but it was more like
Yeah,
for
right.
like more underground bands, like not extremely underground, like your Cattle Decapitations, but like the dudes were like name three songs and to like a woman for like Nirvana. I was like, that's stupid,
Yeah.
and it borders on misogyny half the time. So I just never liked it.
Right.
It's annoying. Like I'm not going to say I'm a saint or anything. I had bad periods in middle school. I'm embarrassed by it. I'm trying to make up for it. But even back then, I realized that stuff was kind of stupid.
Uh-huh. Gotcha. Okay. Um, tell me about your. I didn't know this existed. Your, is it called Danny?
Oh,
your
yeah.
solo project. How did that come out? And
Uh,
the Blue Highlighter EP, which
yeah.
is great. I listened to it.
Initially, the project came about because I saw the Page Fire. Page Fire is a big center of my music, it seems. I saw their video on Speedcore, and I set out a day. I think that was the first song I ever made. Was the first one, Nothing Bad, where I was just like, I want to see how fast I can make a Speedcore song, doing it from scratch. Like, I didn't have anything laid out or anything. I just like plugged in my Arturio microbrute and like downloaded a few plugins and then just saw how fast I could do it. I don't think that song holds up, but I don't know. There's some like roots for like electro hell in that song.
Yeah.
And then Straight Edge Acid was made in a very similar sense, but it was because I just wanted to make music again. It was sort of that start of me realizing I wanted to actually pursue music.
Okay.
And then the Blue Highlighter EP came about because in one of my college American literature classes, someone left out a blue highlighter all of class, and like it didn't have a cap on or anything. And one person noticed, and it kind of became an in joke within the class for a bit. Someone wrote like her name's Gracie Pruitt. She wrote a poem trying to be like all serious about it and like not mention that it was a highlighter or anything.
Oh.
And that got dropped in the class group chat, and I was like, I could probably make a song out of this. And they were all like, oh yeah, do it, because at that point they knew about Atria. And so I was like, I have a bit of free time, I could do it.
Yeah.
And then it evolved from there, becoming, because I wanted, was like, well, what if I told like a whole story of it? Starting with like it getting noticed, and then the second song being like the highlighter actually dying, and then like the third song being the like eulogy at the funeral or whatever. So it's like a concept EP. Almost, right? It's a very stupid idea. It was a joke EP, but it was a joke, but I wanted to take it seriously.
I didn't know the highlighter died. What the hell?
I don't think the highlighter's dead. I think that's
Okay.
alternate reality.
Okay.
But like that's the second song is like, you can't save me, I'm dying already.
No. Anyway, so to end this wonderful, continuous and concrete interview off, what artist do you hate?
AJR.
AJR. I've never listened to them, but they're awful.
I hate them with a burning passion. I don't. They're not harmful. They haven't done anything bad. I just don't like their music, and I think their music is annoying, like World's Smallest Violin. But there's an artist I hate more, honestly. This is probably going to ruffle some feathers. I do not like Pantera. I hate them. I own one of their CDs. I bought it used, and I have a t-shirt of them. I just don't like them. Like, on further listens, I've realized I really only like a few of their songs, and all of them are off of Great Southern Trendkill. And I'm just not a fan of, like, Phil Anselmo as a person. I know he's apologized for some of the stuff he's did.
That wasn't sincere.
Yeah, it wasn't. And it was like the apology he made for saying white power and doing a Nazi salute.
I'm so sorry.
And that was like, it was essentially just a I have black friends argument.
Oh.
That argument can just be like dumb. No. It was a bit more nuanced than that, but still, I think originally he tried to play it off as like, oh, it was the white wine in the back, which no one says white power for white wine.
No. I always just want, whenever I get drunk, I'm always just going full Nazi. Out
Oh,
there.
yeah,
So
totally.
I completely changed my my social ideologies. Go.
And
Completely bad.
yeah, after learning about that stuff, it reflects poorly on the music. And
Okay.
while listening to it, I realized it's not as good as I remember. People kind of prop them up too much. They're just popular, and that's the reason people like them so much. Is they're like the popular band. They're essentially dad metal at this point.
Gotcha.
But I hate how they get propped up, and I hate how people just kind of sweep that stuff under the rug. They're just like the poster boys of that for me.
That's fair. Fair enough. I grew up with Pantera. My dad's a big Pantera fan, so we always blasted in the car. I like Pantera. I think they're good, but I respect your opinion. I can understand it. Anyway, thanks so much for taking the time to deal with my bullshit for like probably a little over an hour, and get on the Zoom with me and have this conversation. I've been dying to ask you these questions, but I wanted to save them for an interview because I just thought it would be interesting to do an interview.
Thank you for having me.
I just